Everybody's Patrick of the Pitch Deck. We're here with a tier list that we're going to be bringing for Kano, the one and only Dark Lord himself. I've been trying to get this to work, but Tier Maker seems to be doing fine. Usually they bring like a big ad in the background that just cuts off all the pictures, so looks like it's doing well today. I don't know what it usually goes around with, but let's go ahead and start from top to bottom, left to right. So we're going to start with Arachne. Typically this is favored for us because of the fact that assassins don't bring a whole bunch of pressure. Typically they don't bring a whole bunch of pressure, but his new attack reaction, coercive tendency, can bring a little bit of pressure when it comes to banishing off the top as well as go again. And his contract passive ability to be able to bottom things can mess up our stack slightly if the Kano's not prepared. So you definitely need to become prepared, but you need to pitch stack without reactions, and you should be okay because they can bring Oasis, and tempo typically won't. You would have to get lucky to get your wildfires early before he gets his Oasis, basically. For Azalea, we are slightly favored if we go first. If we don't go first, we are slightly unfavored. Just my personal opinion whenever I see it. So basically we'll just say 50-50 on that. And when it comes to the differences between the two, the reason why if they go first, there is the chance that they can dominate an arrow with inertia, and we just won't have an arsenal. So when it comes to the general matchup, if they didn't land a dominated inertia arrow, we will be slightly favored because we can still toss damage at them without the fear of getting our arsenal stopped for our first turn. So it just depends on who goes first, but I think we have a slight edge in that matchup. Betsy, we will also be favored because typically Guardians, we can pitch stack with enough D-reacts to protect against it. There are Betsy's that can blow up your boots. It's happened to Majin whenever he was going through his last story time. So for that, you gotta watch out with, I think it's like a non-on hit. Basically, I can't remember the card that basically blows it up, and then you're automatically just gonna be having your boots go away. But typically it's favored because we can just pitch stack. They don't have a whole bunch of pressure. Bolton. When it comes to Bolton, we will be I would say it is favored if it is Raiden and you're coming in as a pitch stack. If you don't know if they're on Bolton combo or Raiden, then you can probably just go for tempo, but then you'll be more slightly unfavored. So you'll go from favored to slightly favored in my personal opinion. However, you can pitch stack the combo deck. You just gotta have you gotta make sure that they don't see their pieces before you see your pieces. Combo hurts stacking a little bit more than Raiden. But between the two, I think we're in the realm of favored to slightly favored. So they tend to bring a whole bunch of passive equipment that can hurt your tempo. So if you just side in tempo because you don't know what package they're bringing, just make sure that you can kill past their equipment suite. For Bravo, we can also be favored. They can high roll you. It does happen. It does happen. Guardians in general, we can be high rolled against as Kano. Even if you do bring your reactions, there can just be some of those hands that for the sake of RNG, they don't really do anything for you whenever they do a CNC pommel and you have no blocks in your hand or mixed with like reactions and things like that, and you basically just can't cover it all. But the on-demand dominate makes it to where it's more slightly favored type of thing. So we'll put him at the end of favored for now. Dash IE, Venter Extraordinaire. If it's pistol, we're going to be favored in terms of pistol control dash, slab dash. I think they called her that. When it comes to boost dash, she'll be on the tail end of slightly favored going into unfavored because of how much pressure that they can bring, and a lot of the time the pressure that they can bring with Pounder is a 0 costing attacks, because then they can just hold up a blue for your combo turn if it's a spare blue, or if it's a blue that they have for your turn to prevent you from searching your wildfire. So sometimes you might not be able to find your wildfire off of lessons. So right now we're going to be putting her at the very tail end of slightly favored, that will almost bleed into unfavored. Dash IE, or IO, sorry, IO. She is a little bit more favored, so a little bit towards the end. When we fill in all of this, I'm going to adjust in terms of all of the matchups being presented. But she can have a lot of dead hands that would otherwise be dead hands into everybody else, but not into us, because their items can still now and block against us via arcane and arcane barrier if they need to have that option for them. But I still think, because she is a lower life total, being at 36, then we should be fine in terms of getting a better lead on her to get her in combo range, basically. So I'm going to put her in slightly unfavored, but it is better in my opinion than Dash IE. Dory will be favored. She's more favored if she comes into hatchets. Dawnblade is going to be slightly more punishing. You will not always have a reaction in your hand unless you build it that way for your sideboard for like 10 reacts. But it's not necessarily a stack matchup, not necessarily, because then there'll be a lot of pressure. So you may have to get your potions out for Dawnblade. So I would say personally Dawnblade would be at the tail end of slightly favored, but all the hatchet builds and decimator builds are going to be favored. They just don't bring enough pressure for decimator, Doriax type of thing to the point where we can just stack almost a mega stack. And then hatchets, you really don't want them to leak the first hatchet, and then you should be fine. If they leak the second hatchet, then that's a little less value because it doesn't get the added bonus of damage or the hatchets of mind and body. Jeremiah's LL, so we'll just go on to the next one. It depends on their loadout, but typically this is going to be a 50-50 match, because maybe more slightly favored, because if they are Spell Void 2 AB1, which sometimes can happen, it'll be 50-50 because of the fact that they protect themselves with Spell Void 2. However, if you go first, you can have a good chance of getting their life down enough to where that we can take advantage of maybe popping the Spell Void if it's something that's very daunting. But we can get them within range, because typically Spell Void 2 is only going to be AB2, and if they empty their hand, that is the only thing you should care about when it comes to the math of factoring your combo. So we'll just put the 50-50 right now, right there. Kasai is going to be a little bit more easy when it comes to the warrior hatchets build. They do have the sword builds. For the sword builds, it is going to be more hindering on the Kasai to see if they can get their attacks to actually hit, so that they can get their gold and their copper to maybe draw into a card off of that and then use their free attacks, because off of hatchets you can't do that. But when it comes to their hatchets or swords, there's not much difference between the two. They really do have a game plan of trying to effectively be a more aggressive deck when they are built for more slightly mid-range and value trading. So they don't have the option to go different builds like Dory does. They pretty much just stay the same. And if they count on you pitch stacking, then they could probably build up their army. But so, like, basically the sellsword armies. So keep your darts in your deck and protect the gold turns, basically. Even if it's a combo piece that you're trying to hold, definitely try to keep that. But if it's like an Axe Kasai build with gold dominated turns, you're just gonna have to let it hit, because you may or may not have the hand to protect against them. So typically it's pretty favored. Katsu. If I had a chance to say who I would want to go against between Dash or Katsu, I think I would go against Katsu a little bit more because he's a little bit easier to read than it is for Dash. He does have Dishonor in his deck. There is a very extremely rare case that you could get turn 0 dominated, or not dominated, dishonored, because it has happened to me. It happened at ProQuest, but that was like almost a year into playing the Kano, and I've only had that happen just that one time. So typically the best loadout for him is AB2, which is Arcane Lantern, 1 Kadachi, and then Tide Flippers, along with Breaking Scales, Links, and then whatever tunic they want. So Mask of the Pouncing Links and Breaking Scales is where it becomes a little bit more scary. Having the Hatsugo AB3 could give you some more pressure. You have the relaxed blocking style, so that way if you want to make sure that they don't have a breakpoint and they have the Breaking Scales, that makes your makes your blocking weird, because then you have to have that hanging of your head to see whenever they need to break the Breaking Scales to give it +1. I think that the AB3 might be slightly more in our favor, just a touch, because you can block a little bit more safer, but it still can give you trouble. So I think Dash, then Katsu, then IO for the slightly favored so far. For the KO, this is a really hard one to put into a category. And the reason I say that is because it's almost like it was whenever Lexi was in the meta and you just don't know what build they're on. There's a touch of that when it comes to KO against your Kano, because they also don't know what you're on unless they have unless they know your deck, unless they know how you play against brutes and things like that. So if they know you're stacking, they may bring in the cast bones as a package deal, or they may just side it out completely and have it to where it's not whiffing against your or their yellow rod wild rides if they're going to be playing them. So personally, I think it is just a touch slightly unfavored for us. We can win. However, I think it's at the tail end of slightly unfavored. It remains to be seen what Kindle does, because I have yet to test Kindle into KO. And I've yet to pitch stack with Kindle in my deck. If you're going to be pitch stacking, I think you have to take it out if you're going to go against KO, because it is considered a no block, quote unquote. And I say that because you can just pretty much block with your hand if it allows you to do so, and then you can just play Kindle for a free +1 that really doesn't go into the thing, and then hopefully you draw a blocking card so you can block with it. So I'm gonna put it at the slight tail end of unfavored. He's easier to read than Dash, than the two dashes here, in terms of what his hand could be and things like that. For Levia, I think we're slightly favored for this one. She gives us a little bit more harder time than Azalea, so I'm gonna say slightly favored to 50-50 type of thing, because this goes into slightly unfavored if they get their blood rushes early and you want to pitch stack. I pitch stack because the Spell Void 4 equipment that they bring with AB2 has it to where we can't just full on tempo them. AB3 is a little rough. If it was AB3, we can have a better chance of going into the match because of the fact that they have to pre-start their graveyard with attacks, and we can chip in early in the game to allow ourselves to get over what they can block, basically. So the graveyard restriction that comes with Levia, If it's AB3, then we're going to be in towards the tail end of slightly unfavored, leading into favored. When it comes to Spell Void 4, it'll be in between these two. I'm going to be posting a video probably after this one of me playing a Levia on stream, and then I'm going to be doing some commentary about it, basically. So I think it's going to be slightly favored in there because of us pitch stacking and the graveyard restrictions that come with the deck. For the max, I'm going to put him as 50-50 just right now. I don't play him too often. I think you got to go tempo, only because of the fact that you can potentially stack for the simple reason that if you have enough defense and enough cards and stacking capability that you could do it, because it is possible. And the reason you might want to do it is because of Evo Facebreaker. Evo Facebreaker basically says, oh, you're gonna not take that. I'm gonna preventing a lot of different stuff that's going on in the combo mace, mainly your wildfires. But it's dependent on two things. It's dependent on how many hyperdrivers he has at that point. So you have to keep track of that if you're going to combo on a certain turn. So keep track of their hyperdrivers. Not only that, when they do pop it, you can let it resolve and then shoot something if they're like tapped out and they're only relying on that type of thing. Because it acts as ward, basically. It's not Oasis. But he can be slightly a little bit obnoxious where it's like attack. If you've done something on your turn and he pitches for something, it's just attack. His hero ability plus Banksy or the pistol type of thing. So he'll be paying into all of those things where he can set up plus an attack. So it's a little bit different because he does need to set up, and those resources that he is setting up can be different, because if he does bring Banksy, his signature weapon, it's going to be easier for you because you can just block 3 and then he doesn't get the value off of adding a steam counter. Not only that, you're blocking better than you are with your pistol. So if you rather just like, oh, I don't want to block a 3 block on a 2 block, I'd rather block it on something else on his turn if I am going to be blocking. So it allows you to have a better block when it comes to that, but I'm still going to keep it at 50-50. It's probably going to be a little bit more towards the end of 50-50 here. I'll move the Kano all the way towards the end. It's basically just to say that this is a 50-50 in terms of statistics. That's just always going to be. Olympia is also going to be giving the same treatment as the other 3 warriors because of the fact that he's going to be a little bit slow. If they go off the 9-0 RTN deck as a template, there was an Olympia that pretty much just went undefeated for the RTN. They brought AB3 with Oasis, and I don't see why you wouldn't do the same. They can fit it in their deck just like the other 2 warriors can. But he doesn't have anything going for him for his hero ability, like Kasai having on hit for gold, as well as potentially using the free sword swing instead of hatchets, as well as Dory having 3 swings as well. He just has wager abilities, which can change the way that you block. So it could be just one big swing, depending on what you read into his hand. But it will still be favored as you can just pitch stack with D-Reacts. We're just going to go and toss this up as one of our... Yeah, let's just say that this is our worst matchup ever. Our worst matchup when it comes to anybody who can prevent combo and still give us enough pressure. Because you can have anybody like an assassin who can prevent our combo but still not give us enough pressure. She can do both, and that's just her natural kit. Anything short of a already maxed out first cycle pitch stack ready to go, then we'll be fine. We want to go first. We do bring Moon to help us out, but it doesn't matter. Even AB1, it doesn't matter. I'm starting to see some prisms where they'll do AB1 on the No Rune Gloves itself and then bring Footsteps. just in case the Kano has it to where poppers hurt you and has the Kano be able to stall out the game enough to where maybe he can pitch attack. There is still AB2 prisms out there though. So yeah, this is pretty much just a it can be an auto loss depending on the pilot of the prism, but even I think the prisms who are still learning the deck can still win very easily against a Kano. It's just like us and Tekla Vossen. Like he's gonna be like at the very end. Someone's gonna toss him because of the sake of saying anything. We are 90-10 into him, if not 95-5, because you can just pitch stack without reactions. He can still have Oasis, so make sure you have the like the Giga stack going on with its triple wildfire, because he really doesn't have anything going on for them because he has to sacrifice starting AB. And I do say that now because of the fact that he did get a full suite of Evo with AB on it. There is now potentially he can probably bring just AB2, which is what I would probably bring. AB2 and then 3 Evo slots where he could possibly bring in 4 to 5 AB depending on when you shoot the combo, because he may not find them all. So the max would be 5 AB, and he no longer needs to bring in the Sacred Relic, I think that's what it's called. That's how he's able to get extra AB on top for combo turns. So from that, we're going to move on to another brute who is slightly unfavored for us. Just in general, his Intimidate allows us to... Sorry, not allows us. Forces us to go off on a combo turn when we may not even need the combo. Or like when we're not ready and they could kill us, but they have a full grip. That's what Intimidate does. And I think he will never, ever, ever have an ability like his ability ever. Like, they're trying to get away from Intimidate as a passive hero ability. They did reprint him for heavy hitters, but he was already still legal, so it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say for this one is the Intim for us, we have to have enough pressure on our terms so that his intimidation turns, when he does force us to banish, it's not going to be as that bad. But he does have a lot of blues, and I think Agile Windup also screws up our combo turn to where Rags can be the last thing that you do, and you have one card in your hand. He can Agile Windup to discard an instant Intimidate effect is now being brought in from heavy hitters. That's just the new thing that he has now. The one card that you have in your hand that you're trying to decide if you want to put on top or bottom, you have to force the top card to be your top card or bottom card, it doesn't matter. So it's just basically making you have one less card on combo turn. So it's still going to be slightly unfavored. If I had a choice, I'd put him a little bit more towards the unfavored portion. That's just me. I really don't like the Intimidate mechanic. It's uninteractive. And then you'll probably say, well, you play Kano, that's uninteractive as fuck. But you can interact with Oasis, so go fuck yourself. When it comes to Reinhardt, his hand unpredictability is where it comes in at. With KO, he has a little bit more of a pattern that you can deduce, so it reads into his hand better. Reinhardt, not so much. You don't know if he's got 1, 2, or 3, or 4 intimidates. So I'd rather go up against... Actually, I'd rather go up against Dio than a Reinhardt. And I'd probably go up against... It's really a bad toss-up between these two here, Katsu or Reinhardt. Who can give us the most trouble? So I think this should be fine right now. Riptide. I think he's gonna be in between. He's gonna be like right here, and then Bravo gives more trouble than that. So we're going to put him as favored. Generally, he doesn't have a whole lot of things going for him to help him prevent combos very well. They can bring AB2, they can bring AB3. They can't hold Oasis or any type of prevention like Feign Death. They have to IP themselves pretty much the entire game because he can't put it in Arsenal unless there's some kind of like weird New Horizon build where he does have the second he has that second arsenal he can just use to pop things in and out. But he's generally favored for us in terms of tempo. You can just count for maybe AB2 at max AB3. Or Yuzuri. She's probably going to be in between Bravo and Olympia. She is still typically favored for us. When it comes to her loadout, it's going to be more oppressive than Arachne will be for the sake of attack reactions. Probably from Mistvale will change that. Now that the full set's out, she's probably going to have a little bit more of a banishing type of deal with the cards that she can select. She can bring Oasis, so keep that in mind if you want to go tempo, but it's almost to the fact that all assassins force the Kano to pitch stack because they can safely bring the Oasis like the warriors can. Victor probably is going to be in between these two. He is going to be favored. I'm in the plan that you can tempo him or you can pitch stack him just like Bravo, but he may be more aggressive at, like, he could be just as aggressive as Bravo. What he doesn't have is a power that can work against the Kano. And what I mean by that is Bravo has on demand dominate. Victor does not. He has to have the cards to line up to make sure that he can dominate something, maybe a Macho Grande red or enough blues so where he can pay for Terra Sunder, but typically he is going to be favored. Let me go ahead and take a drink of water really quick to think about these two. This can be a little bit tricky now. He's going to be in the slightly unfavored, in between that and 50-50. He still runs in the place of, he still runs in Runeblade hands, as they call it. When it comes to him and his loadout, he will have Carapace plus the Quill hands. And I think Nebula Blade is a little bit more oppressive than Reaping Blade, for the sole fact that he now brings the Tiara. So the Tiara headpiece allows all of his rune chants to have Spell Void 1. When that comes into effect when he plays his turns, he can make it to where his hero ability is coming first before the arcane damage comes in on for attacks. So basically it can have like Mauvrian Skies, I'm guessing if there's some rune chants beforehand, of course. Mauvrian Skies into an attack, so the rune chants he had before at the beginning of the turn, they're going to be coming in as arcane damage, but also a ability that's on the stack where he can make it where his hero ability comes in before the arcane rune chants are popped. So that way he is almost on a pseudo permanent Spell Void 1 headpiece to the point where it can increase, so it has a higher ceiling basically. So maybe at the very, very, very tail end of 50-50. I think you can still tempo him. There are builds for him where it is Turtle Dash. Sorry, not Turtle Dash. It is late. I'm doing this. I'm trying to finish it. It's like 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, and I usually go to bed at 10. But the Turtle Visceri builds to where he's trying to build up the rune chants and things like that. They also have like a mid-range turtle build where it's Turtle Burst, and it's not fully stacking on the OTK rune chance, because if you give enough time for Kano, he'll just pitch stack the fuck out of you. Even if he doesn't bring rune chance, or sorry, not rune chance, reactions. So when he doesn't bring reactions, he can still pitch stack you because of like pistol control dash up here. I don't bring anything and I can still pitch stack her pretty easily. So we're just gonna leave him at the tail end of 50-50 here. Vincent. She's probably gonna be in the slightly unfavored because of the fact that she has such passive protection with the shadow equipment. I want you to take note that the Vincents typically are going to be running 9 to 15-ish blues. All right, keep that in mind, 9 to 15-ish blues. They want to make sure that their threat density is available to them at a moment's notice. They don't have the problem of Runeblade hands so much as non-attack actions and attack actions. They have it to where, oh, I don't have a Runeblade, or I don't have enough rune chance to play this rune gate card from Banish. That's what I should say. The rune gate, they may not have one in their hand. They have it to also where the hero ability forces them to banish no matter what. So they are on a predictable attack setup turn where it's attack, setup, attack, setup. But it's just the passive equipment that makes it slightly unfavored for us, more so than the Vis here. Because his Tiara may not always be turned on for him to have the spell void. So yeah, I think that's pretty good in terms of what I see our matchups to be when it comes to Kano. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna screenshot this for just the sake of screenshotting it, and hopefully you found this tier list entertaining as well as informative. Let me know down in the comments below if you've got any other changes that you would make slightly, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.